You learned how to be strong before you learned how to be a child, because when there's only one parent, there's no backup. No one to take over when they're exhausted. No one to soften the weight of keeping a family together. So you became the second adult, the emotional support, the one who didn't complain because complaining felt like adding to a burden that was already too heavy. They say it takes a village to raise a child, but you were raised by one person carrying the weight of two, and you learned early that love sometimes looks like sacrifice, that strength sometimes sounds like silence, that being okay means not asking for too much. This isn't about broken homes. This isn't about missing fathers or absent mothers. This is about what it does to a child when they grow up, watching one person fight the world alone, and then learning to do the same. So what does it feel like to be raised by a single parent? And what does that teach you about love, responsibility, and what you're worth? Let's begin. You became the child who didn't ask for much. Not because you didn't want things, but because you saw how hard your parent worked, how tired they were, how every request felt like another weight on shoulders already bending. So you learned to be easy, low maintenance, the kid who didn't cause problems. You didn't complain when you couldn't afford what other kids had. You didn't ask why the other parent wasn't there. You didn't cry about the things that hurt because crying felt selfish when they were already drowning. And somewhere in that learning, you absorbed a belief that would follow you into every relationship after, that your needs are a burden, that asking for too much means you'll lose the love you have, that being wanted means being easy to love. Psychologists call this self-silencing, the suppression of your own needs to maintain connection, but it's more than that. It's the deep, internalized message that you're only lovable when you're not too much, when you don't need too much, when you make yourself small enough to fit into whatever space is left after everyone else's needs are met. You learned independence young, but what you really learned was that depending on anyone felt dangerous. You weren't just a child, you were a confidant, comfort, a reason to keep going. Your parent leaned on you, not always intentionally, but inevitably. Because when you're alone, holding everything together, the walls between parent and child start to blur. So you listened to problems you were too young to understand. You absorbed worries that weren't yours to carry. You learned to read moods, manage emotions, be the steady one when everything else felt unstable. This is called parentification, when a child takes on emotional responsibilities that should belong to an adult. And it doesn't feel like trauma when it's happening. It feels like love, like helping, like being needed. But here's what it costs. You never learned that you could fall apart and still be caught, that your feelings could be messy without being too much, that being vulnerable didn't mean being abandoned. Instead, you learned that your role was to hold space for others, to be strong when they couldn't be, to swallow your own pain because there was no room for two people to break at once. And now, even as an adult, you struggle to let anyone see you struggle, because being the strong one isn't just what you do. It's who you learned you had to be to deserve love. Your parent gave up everything, their time, their dreams, their own life in so many ways to make sure you had one. And you saw it, every missed opportunity, every exhausted morning, every moment they chose you over themselves. So you learned that love means sacrifice, that caring for someone means erasing yourself, that if you're not giving everything, you're not giving enough. This is beautiful. And it's devastating, because now you don't know how to be loved without earning it. You don't know how to receive without guilt. You don't know how to let someone care for you without feeling like you owe them everything in return. You give and give and give because that's what love looked like. And when someone doesn't match that intensity, you wonder if they love you at all. But here's the truth your parent probably never told you. Their sacrifice wasn't your fault. Their exhaustion wasn't your responsibility. Their choice to stay, to fight, to keep going, that was their love, not your debt. You don't owe anyone your whole self just because they chose to love you. You're strong. Everyone says so. You handle things. You don't break. You keep moving even when life gets heavy. But no one asks what it cost you to become this strong, what you had to survive, to build that resilience, because strength for you wasn't a choice. It was survival. You learned early that there was no safety net, that if you fell, there was no one to catch you, that being okay wasn't optional, it was necessary. So you became the person who handles everything alone, who doesn't ask for help because help was never really there, who builds walls so high that even people who want to love you can't find a way in. And the loneliest part, you learn to be self-sufficient in a way that makes intimacy feel impossible. Because letting someone in means admitting you need them. And needing someone feels like the most dangerous thing you could do. You watched your parent survive alone. And you learned that alone is safer than abandoned. But safe isn't the same as loved. And strong isn't the same as okay. Whether the other parent left, died, or was never there to begin with, their absence shaped you. Not always in obvious ways, but in the quiet questions you learned not to ask, in the hole-shaped space you tried not to notice, in the way you watched other families and wondered what it would feel like to have two. And maybe you told yourself it didn't matter, that you were fine, that one good parent was better than two bad ones, and maybe that's true, but it still left a mark. It taught you that people leave, that love, even when it's supposed to be permanent, isn't always. That you can be someone's child and still not be enough to make them stay. And now, in your adult relationships, you brace for abandonment. You test people to see if they'll leave. You pull away first so it hurts less when they go. Because you learn that absence is just part of love. That people you need will disappear. That the safest thing to do is never need anyone that much in the first place. But here's what you didn't learn. Their leaving wasn't about you. Their absence doesn't define your worth. You were always enough. They just weren't able to stay. You feel guilty for things that were never your fault. Guilty that your parent had to do it alone. Guilty for being the reason they stayed in a hard life. Guilty that you needed things they couldn't always give. And that guilt follows you everywhere. It makes you apologize for existing, for having needs, for taking up space, for wanting more than the bare minimum. You feel guilty for being happy when they struggled. Guilty for moving on when they sacrificed so much to get you there. Guilty for building a life they never got to have. But here's the truth. You don't owe your life to your parents' sacrifice. You don't have to stay small to honor what they gave. You don't have to struggle to prove their struggle mattered. You don't have to carry their pain as penance for being the child they chose to raise. Your parent fought for you to have a better life, not the same one, not a guilty one, a free one. The hardest thing about being raised by a single parent isn't the absence. It's unlearning what you had to become to survive it. You're learning that your needs aren't a burden, that asking for help doesn't make you weak, that love doesn't always look like sacrifice. You're learning that being easy to love isn't the same as being loved. That strength isn't the same as shutting people out, that you can be both independent and held. And it's hard because everything in you still says, don't need too much. Don't ask for too much. Don't be too much. But you're learning that real love doesn't require you to disappear. That healthy relationships have space for two people to be human. That being vulnerable isn't dangerous. It's the only way to be truly seen. You were shaped by one parent's love. And that love was real and fierce and enough. But now you get to learn a different kind. The kind where you don't have to carry everything alone, where being loved doesn't mean being easy, where you can fall apart and still be held. You deserved that as a child. You deserve it now. If this video resonated, if you recognize yourself in these patterns, you're not alone. Being raised by a single parent shapes you in ways people don't always see. The strength, the guilt, the resilience that came at a cost. This is a space where we explore those patterns with compassion. If you'd like to stay connected, consider subscribing. And if you feel moved to share your experience, what it was like, what you're still unlearning, the comments are open. Your story might help someone else feel less alone. Thank you for being here. You're not too much. You never were.